It's more than 3,000 years ago, and somewhere in ancient India, a man is ruining his life over dice. He knows he is losing. His family is angry. He promises himself he will stop. Then he hears the dice hit the ground, and goes back anyway. No casino, no smartphone, no cocaine, not even a responsible gambling pop-up pretending to care. So what exactly was happening in his brain? Could ancient humans get addicted without drugs? The short answer is that their brains were already built for reward long before anyone invented a slot machine. Dopamine helps the brain learn what matters, especially when a reward is uncertain. Drugs can hijack that system, but they did not create it. Food, sex, status, risk, competition, and winning were already pressing those buttons tens of thousands of years earlier. Start in Mesopotamia, where humans invented cities, writing, bureaucracy, and apparently also found time to argue over board games. At the Royal Cemetery of Ur, archaeologists found the royal game of Ur, with boards dating to around 2600 to 2400 BCE and tetrahedral dice from roughly the same period. That does not prove someone in Ur was clinically addicted. What it proves is simpler. People had created a repeatable little machine made of uncertainty, anticipation, winning, losing, and try again. Roll badly, pain. Roll well, relief. Win, glorious. Lose, obviously the dice were defective. Centuries later, a Babylonian tablet from 177 BCE preserved rules for the game, showing how long these chance-based games remained culturally important. Some versions even carried ritual or divinatory meaning, so a throw could feel like more than entertainment. It could feel like fate giving you feedback. Mesopotamia gives us the first piece of the puzzle. The reward loop existed. But did anyone actually lose control? Yes. Yes, they did. Ancient India gives us the strongest evidence. Harappan sites from roughly 2600 to 1900 BCE have produced terracotta dice and gaming pieces, so games of chance were already part of life there. Then, much later, the Rigveda gives us something far more personal. Hymn 10.34, often called the Gambler's Lament, comes from the later Vedic tradition and describes a man who cannot leave the dice alone. And this is where the story stops feeling ancient. He loses wealth. His family turns against him. He knows gambling is hurting him. He tries to stop. Then the sound of the dice pulls him back. That is not a modern psychiatric diagnosis, and a poem is not a medical record. But the pattern is painfully recognizable. Loss of control, damaged relationships, repeated behavior despite consequences. Basically, the poet was describing the guy who deletes the betting app on Monday, feels spiritually reborn by Tuesday, then reinstalls it before the weekend. Different millennium. Same terrible plan. Then we get Rome, a civilization that treated excess less like a warning sign and more like interior decoration. Roman dice survive all across the empire, and gambling was common enough to become both entertainment and social problem. One of the funniest examples comes from Emperor Claudius. According to Suetonius, writing in the early 2nd century CE, Claudius loved dice so much that he wrote a book about the game and even had a board fitted to his carriage so he could play while traveling. Imagine ruling one of the most powerful empires on earth and still thinking, "Great meeting, everyone. Now please secure my gaming setup before we hit a pothole." Suetonius loved gossip, so we should not treat every detail like CCTV footage from ancient Rome. But the story matters because intense devotion to gambling was visible enough to become part of Claudius's public image. Rome gives us the third piece. Reward-seeking was not hidden in some prehistoric cave. It could become normal, fashionable, and woven into elite life. Now, gambling is just the clearest historical case because dice leave artifacts and gamblers leave stories. Ancient humans could also chase food, sex, status, danger, victory, or social approval. Those behaviors are harder to diagnose thousands of years later because they do not leave neat little boxes in the ground labeled compulsive behavior. The brain mechanism, though, did not care whether the reward came from a drug or a lucky throw. It cared that something felt valuable enough to repeat. Here is the modern contrast. Gambling was only formally classified alongside addictive disorders in the DSM-5 in 2013. Humans had been rolling dice for more than 4,000 years before modern psychiatry officially placed a non-substance behavior in that category. Our brains were apparently running the software long before science wrote the manual. So the answer to the title is, ancient humans absolutely had brains capable of becoming trapped in reward loops without drugs, while gambling gives us the clearest surviving evidence of addiction-like behavior rather than a diagnosis we can prove. Archaeology shows the reward systems existed. Ancient literature shows people noticed when those rewards began to control someone instead of the other way around. And modern neuroscience explains why. The human brain does not need a laboratory-made chemical to get trapped in a loop. It only needs a reward, uncertainty, repetition, and a reason to believe the next try might be different. That is the uncomfortable connection between them and us. Technology changed. Temptation got faster. The brain stayed very human. So the next time you whisper, "just one more," to a game, a feed, or anything else glowing in front of you, remember, someone thousands of years ago probably said the same thing, right before throwing the dice again.